Good evening, everyone. My name is Anchanto Am, and I'm one of the co-founders of ACT, also known as Asian American Pacific Islanders Coming Together. We are an independent, nonpartisan group of concerned Central Florida citizens who want to make a difference in our community. So you might ask, what's the goal? Our goal is to engage, educate, and empower the AAPI community in Central Florida by amplifying the AAPI voice through voter engagement. This evening, you'll also get the chance to meet my co-founder, Cam Chennai. And unfortunately, Ricky Lee is also a co-founder, but he's unavailable this evening. Our core members include Amy Akamani, if you want to raise your hand or wave. Gregory Wing. Alexis Alfonso. Henry Wong. Amber Leung. Adna Romana, who's not available this evening. Lisa Gong Guerrero. And our favorite deputy, First Class Tom Lin. We would like to thank you all for attending our very first ACT Town Hall. As you all know, this is a critical time, and this movement, as well as others, is greatly needed to help the AAPI community. And all of us are playing a significant part. And for that, we are grateful to all of you for giving your time to ACT. Along the lines of gratitude, I would like to acknowledge the following representatives and local officials who are giving their support by being in attendance. So as I call your name, would you kindly stand or wave to be recognized, and you can sit right back down, or you can stand the entire time. So we have Judge Denise Beamer. We have Judge John Beamer. We have Judge Vincent Chu. We have Judge Andrew Bain. We also have a representative who is the Vice President of Orange County Asian Committee, Sean Tan. We have Agnes Chow, who's the President of Youth Enrichment and Senior Services. And we also have Camilla Kong from AsiaTrend, who's a board member. We have Amy Akamani, who's the President of the National Association of Asian American Professionals. We have Kenway Wong, who's the President of the Greater Orlando Asian American Bar Association. We have Katie Lynn and Greg Mosswinkle, who's a Secretary and Board Member of Asian American Chamber of Commerce. And we also have Alexis Delfonso, a representative of the Philippine Nurses of Central Florida. We also have Caesar, who is the President of the Hispanic Bar Association of Central Florida. We have Emmy Olive Corona, might be mispronouncing your name, I apologize, Board of Soto District. And we have Deputy Tom Lin, who is Orange County Sheriff's Office. Again, thank you very much for being in attendance. Everyone's support out here tonight means so much to us. A few housekeeping items. I want you all to know that this meeting is being recorded by our community sponsor, Gary Lau with AsiaTrend, so please conduct yourself accordingly. Additionally, we ask that you please reserve any comments and questions until the end, when we'll have our open discussion segment later this evening. So now, why are we all here on a Monday evening when it's about the storm outside? Is a key question, right? Each of you are here for very different reasons, but essentially it's to support the movement. I would like to share my reason why I'm here, and then next I'll ask Cam to come up and share his reason why he chose to act. For me personally, I became more engaged in 2019 when I learned the troubling statistic that the AAPI community is one of the fastest growing demographic, but yet it has the lowest voter turnout rate. I'm going to say it again. One of the fastest growing demographic, but yet one of the lowest voter turnout rate. So my immediate question was, why? Why is this happening? Was it registration or voter accessibility? Was it the lack of knowledge about our candidates or amendments on the ballot? Or was it because we felt like our voice wasn't being heard? That it didn't matter? So I'll be honest, there was quite a few times when these questions resonated with me to the point I felt troubled. Realizing the depth of my concern, I asked them the next question. How do we fix this problem? How do we address this issue? How do we go about doing that? So when I served as the president of the Greater Orlando Asian American Bar Association in 2020, I again recalled the troubling statistic and I presented it to our board members and our board of directors. And from there, we made the voter initiative one of our key programs with partnerships with local organizations like NAP and local businesses like Rockstar Axe Throwing and Pom Poms. You'll be really surprised what local businesses will do when they felt like they were heard. So according to the AAPI the 2020 presidential election saw a major increase in voter engagement among Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, building on record gains in voting in the 2018 midterm elections, where midterm voter registration turnout jumped across every segment of the AAPI community. Every segment including by age, by gender, and geography. The members of GOABA and NAP believe that our initiative was one of many drops in a bucket that helped this tide of change. The people here today, and I believe that you all are here today because you firmly believe that ACT can build upon this 2020 foundation and continue to swell the tide into a sea of change. So today, and most recently, I see that our community are facing several challenging issues, ranging from hate crimes, rising gas prices, inflation, gun control, immigration, reproductive rights, and more. By the end of this town hall, we hope you take with you the empowerment to help amplify the AAPI voice in our community through voter engagement. And that is my why. I'm now going to ask Cam if he would join me at the podium and share his why.
Thank you, Ann. That's the question, why ACT? So I have two reasons. One of them is math-based, numbers-based. And the second one is emotion-based. So I want to share with you both. And when I go through it, you'll realize the opportunity we have in front of us. So here are the numbers. You don't have to look at the slide, but there are three key numbers on this slide. If you look at the AAPI population, there are 25.6 million of us, which is about 6 to 7% of the population. The voting bloc is about 11 million. And we contribute, our buying power is 1.3 trillion. 1.3 trillion is our buying power. Okay? However, and yet, as I call it, we are 7% of population percentage, but our representation in all kinds of governments, local, Senate, municipality, is 0.9%. In engineering, we call it insignificant. less than 1% representation, 7% the population. You see the disconnect? It is absolutely ridiculous to have that kind of a difference. So what do we do about it? So on mention about our voice, I say we have a voice, but it's a whisper. There's a song, Careless Whisper. That's what we are. Our whisper is absolutely, nobody cares. But we can change it though. So keep that word in mind, whisper. So now, I said, why is it so? So I went around and my latest count is 67. I asked 67 different people. I gave them the same statistics that I shared with you. On top of that, I gave them 2 other statistics. One is, I said, did you know that the median income of AAPI is $23,000 more than the average American? Next question. Do you know our graduation rate of college degrees is 55% versus the 33% of average American? And the answer was, we didn't know that. These were the answers. Unbelievable. We didn't know that. How can it be? We need to change. So that shows, nobody's fault. There's a lack of awareness of the magnitude. Numbers do matter in politics. You all know that. Big numbers are more important than small numbers. We have big numbers, but we are acting small. We can change that. So that's what this is all about. So I said, okay, so let's just look at facts. I'm still into this numbers game. I'll come to the emotion in a minute. And Bill made me so smart during the COVID times. I met him. We didn't recognize each other's faces because we were wearing masks. And he gave me a lecture on, not lecture, an education on statistics. I like numbers. And he sent me reams and reams of paper and I was all engrossed in it. And I said, I can't go through the whole thing with you. How about one slide? 11.5 million eligible voters. This is United States. And votes 6.9. Why did we get 11 million votes? So there is a gap. One is the registration gap and the participation gap. Those are the 2 gaps. So it's all about voter registration. On alluded to it. We're going to say it again and again. I'm sure Bill will hammer that point even more. So I did some more math before I get to the emotional piece. If we had increased our registration by 20 points and penetration by 1 point, we would have gotten 2 million more votes. 2 million more votes. Bring it to Orange County. I won't use the numbers because I think Bill is going to go through those. Suffice to say that if we had increased the participation and the registration, 20 points and 1 point, we would have gotten at least 9,000 more votes in the last election. Some people might say 9,000 isn't important. Look at what happened in 2020. Some of you were around. I think the candidate lost the election by, if I'm correct, by 537 votes. Every vote counts. So that's how many votes we left on the table. 10,000 votes. So what do we need to do? Before I get to my emotional is we need to, in our meetings we say, we've got to pump up the volume. Then we came up with a phrase. So I asked one of the younger people in this audience, have you heard of the group Wham? They used to song, and I was surprised. They said, yeah, we know Michael, what is his name? And that song was very Careless Whisper, was the song. You may remember that. Beautiful song. So I said, let's just build our own song now. And we'll call it The Roar. So from whisper to a roar. So that's our, right? That's how we bridge the registration gap. So, the emotional reason now, why you keep pondering on those 2 points. Somebody asked me, why really are you joining ACT? Again, I said, all right, emotional piece now. I said, I know for a fact, Bill, that I won't be here in year 2060. I just know that for a fact. That is like, what, 38 years from now? No way I'll be here. But I do know my 4 grandchildren will be here. 4 grandchildren. One is 3 months old. The oldest is 15 years. So I said, we got to do something to change their lives. We can sit here, we can joke, but that's why I'm doing it. That's why ACT is important to me. That's why we are here tonight. That's why we want to know, why is it that we don't register? Why is it that we don't participate? And if we can find, there are one other mention I want to make. There are a lot of younger people in this audience. There are a couple of boys there. I call them young men. They had an important meeting today. They heard, one of them had never met, the other one had met for 10 minutes. And they said that we're going to change that meeting that was held today. They moved it to yesterday, and they are here today because they want to make a difference. Remember those make a difference? That is, we have a slogan in ACT. I think, Amy, you coined it. We said, let's act mad. M-A-D. Make a difference. So that's why I'm here. And with that, I want to thank Ron, and I will ask you to come up again and introduce Bill.
Thank you, Cam. I love, Cam is, if you don't know him, is known for his acronyms. He comes up with ACT MAD, or I love hope, or from a whisper to a roar. And as much as we have so much fun in our meetings, I think at the end of the day, we can easily summarize the passion behind it with those acronyms. Then you should say, I have hope. Let's have this whisper be a roar. Let's act mad. And I feel like that is something that any demographic, any age group can say that they understand and appreciate. So thank you, Cam. So I have the privilege to introduce the supervisor, Bill Cowles, to join us and speak about the role of the supervisor elections office and the challenges that he faces day in, day out. Because the election, his work doesn't stop when it's not election season. He's always working, and his team as well. And also, he'll also shine some light on how the community can help. But before I do that, Bill, I wanted to share a little bit about him because it's so important to recognize all the hard people who are working to make this possible. So Mr. Cowles is part of the Orange County Supervisor's Elections Office involved since 1989 after serving 13 years on the staff of the Central Florida Council, Boys Scouts of America. He was elected as the Orange County Supervisor elections in 1996. Some of us here were not even born in 1996. And has been re-elected each time in every election since. Not to mention, he also supervises the 5th largest county elections office in the state of Florida. So no pressure, Bill. I'm giving the mic to you now.
Thank you, Aunt. And welcome to our house. Your house, actually, because it's your tax dollars that pays for this building. So glad to have you and be able to host this, and much better than doing our Zoom meetings that we did before and all that. So I could stay here and keep you up all night telling you about what I know about the elections and about the elections office, but we've boiled it down to a couple of areas. We're going to talk about Orange County and the Asian numbers, then we're going to talk about election information, and then we're going to talk about language assistance, and then one last item, which is one of those call to action items. So first off, there's the numbers. Orange County population, 1.4 million residents based on the count during the 2020 census, and then the total population for the Asian community was at 78,348. So as you see, Cam taught me to do the numbers for you as well on that. So that's what the census said. Then we took the look at the total number of registered voters, and there's 36,030 registered voters in Orange County. And I'll talk about that. Then what I did was statistically, I went back and looked at it to see how it breaks down in the county. As you know, the county's broken down into 6 single-member county commission districts, and so we broke the numbers down there, and you'll see County Commission District 1, which is the Horizon West, Windermere, Dr. Phillips area, is number 1, and then number 4, District 4, which is the east side, with the Lake Nona, growth going on in Lake Nona, and Avalon Park and all. So just give you kind of a breakdown where in the county the population lives. And then we went back and looked at who the top 3 precincts were, the 3 largest precincts in turnout. And so we found it to be 3 of them. They're all down on Apopka Vineland Road, south of Sand Lake Road, and over towards the Windermere area. But I do have, and we'll get you a copy of the numbers for every precinct and all the statistical information that I did for that. So those are the top 3. Obviously, the biggest thing that has happened this year is that it's the year of reapportionment, where all the drawings of all the districts at the various levels have now happened, and we need to put them all together. So the first one here is United States Congress, and there is a map around the room. There are the 5 maps for the new districts, so you can take a look at them. And also in the very back is one that shows the 241 precincts and their boundaries. But the congressional district, as you can see, that there are 4 districts that touch Orange County. The one thing about when they draw the districts for state, at the congressional level, state and House, they start in Pensacola and Key West, and they draw to the center, and then they have to tie it all together in Orange County. So that's how come we get so many different districts. So it does say up there that we got 4. It does say there was technically a 5th one, but we've taken care of that. They put 1 census block that is nothing more than asphalt on McCulloch Road, which is the dividing line between UCF and Seminole County. So there's nothing but roadkill there. There are no voters living there. So we really only have 4 congressional districts in Orange County. And one of them you probably been hearing a lot about, Congressional District 10, where we have 18 candidates, which I think is a record for Orange County. All right, then we have the State House and the State Senate maps are up. And so in the State Senate, we have 5 Senate districts. But when you go to look at the maps, and when you look at the 10 House districts, you're going to find that there's very few of them that is strictly in Orange County, because they take in Lake, Osceola, Brevard, around Seminole as part of those districts, and there's very few of them that are completely in Orange County. Then you got the County Commission District, and they drew their new ones. I'm one of those voters that got affected, because I used to be in County Commission District 1, and then they moved Gotha into District 2, and so now 2 years ago, I voted for District 1. This year, I'll be voting for District 2. So a lot of voters are going to be confused on who their elected officials are, because it's not always the same as a result of this redistricting. So that's the county. School board, they have 7 single-member districts. And so with that single-member district, they have 7, different than the county. So things don't always add up when you put it all together. So we have to put it all together, and that's where you can take it afterwards and kind of go look at the maps on there. One of the things about the voter registration file, the voter registration file is public record. And one of the things that Cam and I talked about in the prep meeting was the fact that that file is public record. So you all could get the file and you could begin working through that file to reach out to residents that you want to expand here and get them in your crusade to increase your numbers. I forgot my next props. So that's kind of to set the stage that things have changed on who represents you. Because we have to put all those districts together to let you know who represents you. So from that standpoint, you're going to begin to see mailings from us and voter information. So on the voter registration side, let me talk about voter registration first. Voter registration is a live, active file. People come in and register, but people move out of the county. People pass away. People become convicted felons. So we're constantly updating that file. The other thing that's important to know is when people fill out the voter registration form, ethnicity question is not a mandated site or item on the form. So if they don't check it, they still get registered. And so when you look at our statistics by precincts or countywide, there's a lot of unknown. So you could have more members out there, but we don't know it because they didn't check the box. So that's something that you can look at as you look at the file. The other thing that we talked about that you might find interesting is they've now gone back to in-person ceremonies. The immigrations is doing the naturalization ceremonies now down at Lake Buena Vista, not Buena Vista, the other one, Lee Vista, on Lee Vista every week. And so as soon as a person goes through the ceremony and they are sworn in as United States citizen, the minute they walk out, my staff is there with clipboards and gives them an opportunity to register to vote right then and there. So again, that's new citizens getting that opportunity. So a lot of judicial candidates in the room. You didn't hear the speech last week at the candidate seminar. So when you talk about voting, we've changed the model for voting. Used to be you had two options. You could vote at your polling place on election day, or you could get an absentee ballot. And then along came the invention of vote by mail. If you want a ballot, you can ask for it and get it. And then along came COVID, which a lot of people wanted to vote by mail because they didn't want to go out. So you can see in this graph how we've changed how people vote. Because on the far left is election day, and you can see it went down to 30% of the vote in 2020. But then you can see the huge spike in mail. And so right now, the number one way voters vote in Orange County is they vote by mail. And on your seats were forms that if you hadn't registered for your vote by mail ballot, or you know somebody who needs one, give them the form and have them return it to us. The second way to vote is early voting. And early voting, we have 2 solid weeks, and we have 20 locations around the county. This year we've added 2. One in Lake Nona area. We're going to be in Valencia, Lake Nona. So that community has one now. And then on the west side, because the city of Orlando and Orange County own the property, and then there's a management company that runs Orange County National Golf, and they have a community meeting room. So the new phrase out there is you can eat, drink, play, 18, and vote all at the same time. Think about it, look at the order. Watch, figure out the order for it. Okay? So, again, the message is going out to candidates, but the message for voters is we've changed the way to vote, and so voting starts on the 33rd day before the election when we drop vote by mail ballots. Because that's when the candidates are going to drop the brochures. That's when your mailbox is going to be full. And I'll give you one hint. If you want the candidates to quit mailing you, robocalling you, the sooner you vote your ballot and return it, they're not going to waste any more money on it. Okay? So if you want to get off that list, vote early by sending your ballot back in. Okay? That's how you get rid of that. Because they don't want to spend extra money trying to get a hold of it. All right, so we talked about the 3 ways to vote in it. And also I went back and took a look at the 3 ways to vote for the Asian voter count. And there's the breakdown. 14,500 voted by mail, 9,448 voted early, and only about 2,900 went to the polls on election day. So you can see we've changed the model for voting. So with the changes with redistricting, also we got changes with polling places because nobody builds a polling place. You have to go out and find it. So there have been there's 3 mailers being planned for every voter to help prepare them for the election. The first one that we mailed out was the notice of elections. And we've got people who have called us, why did I get that thing? Well, did you read the information? And they're better than the ones who said, oh, more political mail, and they threw it in the garbage and never looked at it. But the key thing about this whole thing was right here on the customized piece for every voter. On the one side, on the left-hand side, it says, what's your party affiliation? Because Florida is a closed primary state. So when you get to the state and federal contest on the ballot, you have to be a member of the Democrat or Republican Party to participate in their candidate elections on August 23rd, primary election. Okay? But Orange County, 42% Democrat, 30% Republican, 25% Democrat. So for most voters, because school board, county commission, judicial races are all nonpartisan, everybody gets to vote. So there's always a ballot for every voter when they go to vote in our elections here in Orange County. But if you want to be in the party elections, you have to be in, and you have to do it you have to be registered in that party by the 29th day before the election. Legislature took a tack on vote by mail. Used to be a vote by mail request was good for 2 election cycles. Now they cut it back to 1. And a lot of voters got their list cut, so they have to renew and make a request. And now everybody's going to have to be making a request going forward every election cycle. So we put on there, do you have a request or no request? So that you would know, and then it gives you the instructions on how to make that request for vote by mail ballot. So that one's out. If you didn't get it, and you know you're registered, might be because you moved and you didn't tell us your address. That might be why we got 45,000 pieces back in the mail. So keeping your address up to date is important, okay? So the next mailing that's going to go out to every voter is we're going to send out, starting in early July, to every voter, their new voter information card. Do you need your voter information card in order to vote? No. Florida ID is your signature and a photo. Most popular photo signature ID is? Driver's license. Do you have to have a driver's license in order to vote? No. Okay. So this is going to be to let you know, first off, which districts you now live in based on all the redistricting that happened to the maps here in Central Florida, Orange County. And then it's also going to list, if you are a traditionalist and you like to go to your polling place on election day, it will be listed on this card. Okay, so this is information. It's got more information about voting on it for the voters. So hopefully they'll read it and not throw it in the garbage. All right, and then the final mailing going out is the sample ballot. And on the sample ballot, it lists all 20 locations for early voting, the times of the voting. It has your polling place with a map with directions, and then inside will be the ballot, the actual an example of the actual ballot the voter gets. So another way to help push turnout is start having community get-togethers with your friends and neighbors and discuss it and pre-mark it, and then bring it to the polls and just move your mark to your real ballot, and you'll get in and out much faster. There is a question on this ballot, and there'll be 4 now, possibly 5, depending on what the county commission does, on the ballot in November. So pre-studying it is very helpful. So those are the mailers going out. Okay, so to wrap up, language assistance. Again, the United States Census comes up with the population, languages spoken, and it's broken down even further in Section 203 of the Voting Rights Act. It says that certain communities where the population and the education level is greater than 5% of the population, you have to do the ballots in that language. So we're required under Department of Justice to do everything in English and Spanish as the mandated ones. Now, Florida law says that any voter can bring anybody of their choosing to the polling place to assist them in voting, and that includes translating the ballot. So a person can bring a translator of their choosing. They don't have to be a registered voter. They can also be younger than 18, a teenager there to assist in helping them with the language. And as Cam and I talked early on about it, right now the Haitian Creole community has asked, and they've assisted us in creating a template of the entire ballot translated into Haitian Creole. And so we've talked about one of the projects this group could take on is translating for us the ballot into whichever language, and we kind of prioritize them, but you all can figure that out on that. So if that's something you want to do, we'll work together to get the ballots. The ballots have been laid out. They're being proofed now to go to the printer. So the final thing that came up was how to get involved. Obviously, one of the best ways is volunteer to be a poll worker. Come work at the polls. So we are still taking names for poll workers. But we have this one unique program that I'll leave the packet up here with the leaders. But we have a program called Adopt a Precinct. It's not an original name because you've seen the signs whenever you drive around town called Adopt a Highway. I stole it right from that. Right now, we have about 110 community groups that actually adopt a polling place, and they work the polling place as poll workers, but instead of getting paid individually, they take and get all the money together for their organization. And so many of these groups are using it as fundraisers for their group. Perfect example, Lake Nona High School band. They wanted all new instruments, so they adopted 3 precincts, make about $1,800 to $1,900 per election, per site, and they were using that money for new things. So here's all the information about it. If you're not in time for August, there's always time for November 8th.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. I jotted down some notes, and to summarize it, some of the key things I heard in regard to mailers. 1, read all of your mailers from the Orange County Supervisor Elections Office. 2, if you want the candidates to stop sending you mailers, vote as soon as possible. So those are just my takeaways, but you can take away what you learned from it, but that's just my takeaways from it. So thank you very much, Bill. Now the next segment, and I think this is a segment that everyone's been waiting for, is to hear a little bit more about these survey results. And I want to say thank you very much to the core team members and also to our community members for making this possible to reaching or actually surpassing our goal. And also the next portion is the open discussion as well. So I'm now going to pass the torch to Cam if you want to come up here.
Bill, my takeaway was the mail-in percentage. The national average was 46, AAPI was 54. Numbers. Okay, the survey results is the next topic, and I'll be brief here. So we decided to gather information from you all, and we were expecting to get 50 responses. We got 344. So when that happens, you know something is going on. People are interested. So what did we find out? The top 5 survey results were public education, safety, environment. You can read it there, which is something that we have heard a lot. So we'll talk about it a little bit more as we go along. But there was an interesting statistic that I found. The age profile was pretty much in line with the population. And out of all these observations, I want to mention one, and that is the first one, which is 50%. That means out of 344, 172 said they would like to volunteer. Now, I'll take this to the next level. We have close to 46,000 AAPI eligible voters. Half of them are interested in volunteering. That's 22,000. And I know I'm wrong there, so let's say I'm wrong by another chunk, and let's say there are 10,000 people who are willing to volunteer. You know what that means? We are talking about a whisper becoming a roar. So I went and looked at the capacity of Dr. Phillips Performing Arts. Their capacity is 5,128. So imagine 10,000, they'll have to do 2 shows just to get AAPI volunteers. So that's how big it is. So underneath all that kind of senseless humor, there is a point though. This is what verbatim people have been saying. We can read the things. It is, but even that, people are saying. We read almost every comment, and there were a couple of things that I noticed, and they were, let us stop stating the problems. Let us stop stating the problems, and let's get involved to fix them. That was one of the verbatims that I thought was interesting. The other one was, we all need to get involved, we. The third one was, high time we address gun control, women's rights, immigration. Let us, we again, half the people want to volunteer. I can sense that there is something beyond the numbers there, which is a very encouraging news. So then we connect the dots, and what connecting the dot means is, this is my last slide here, policies are not aligned to the AAPI requirements. Fact. Why? That is because AAPI representation is low, 0.9%. Why? That is because we have a registration gap. Why? We really don't know. We guess maybe it is because of lack of information, because of lack of knowing how to vote, voting 101, maybe because of lack of access, maybe people think that what we say doesn't matter. So I think what we need to do in this open discussion is try to figure out why. Why is it that our registration rate is low? How can we bridge the gap, and how can we make it a road? So with that, I'm going to stop, and we can, I think, you're going to help me, right, with the mic? So who wants to go first? Instead, I can pick up the name or the why. Anybody from the audience? I'm going to start. I'll pick on the youngest one, maybe. Right in the back. Very, okay, fine. So, and then please think about the whys. And is Danae here? Danae, can you help me with this mic so we can take it around? Oh, thank you. You have to be an election officer to know all this. I think somebody needs the hand there in the back.
Mic test, mic test. Okay, well, good. I think for the first question, why is AAPI Voice a Whisper? I think when Mr. Hamby first asked this question, I think, when everyone was staying silent, I think that was a big reason. I think a lot of Asian Americans, especially within Florida, don't want to speak out or, don't have the available resources to. So I think it's really a matter of unification and coming all together to really make our voice heard. Because I think that will make a big difference in the political landscape of America and also the political landscape for Asian Americans within politics. I think how we transform Asian American whispering to a roar is getting more Asian Americans, young Asian Americans, the next generation involved with politics within voting. I think a big problem is understanding why our vote matters and how we can actually vote. I think, if we can create more accessibility and simplicity in how we do that, I think we can get a lot more, participants and importance in how Asian Americans vote as a whole. I think what we can see in America, young people are really making a difference in how politics change, how we can make a difference, and I think if we can do that with young Asian Americans, the next generation, I think our outlook as a whole, as a populace, will be much better. Thank you.
You can just raise your hand. There is one right.
Good evening, everybody. One of the things is that talking to our Asian American fellows is that everybody thinks, oh, well, my vote won't make much difference. So what we need to communicate to them is that in elections, there are elections that are won with 50, 100 votes. So we are 10% of the population of Orange County right now, the Asian Americans. We own 15,000 businesses. We made a contribution of $2.3 billion to the Orange County economy. So we do count in these elections. Elections have consequences. So our 10% population of Orange County is a significant number. And we can make a difference in the elections, in these elections. So we have to get across to our fellow Asians that we need to be out there. We can't be invisible, that we are the visible force, and our numbers count. And in this regard, I think because we come from various Asian ethnicities and religion, etc. I know, being a Muslim, we get our leaders in the mosque to actually communicate their message. Because people listen to our faith leaders probably more than us. So I think we need to do the same thing. Communicate through some of our leaders. Hey, our vote count. There was an election down in Dade County this year. The person, from the state, he was the state rep, he lost by 5 votes. Just 5 votes. So our numbers are significant to make a difference. And when we talk about anti-Asian attacks, etc., if there is a candidate that is not supporting us, our numbers can stop him from being elected.
Absolutely.
Right? There have been cases where there was anti-Muslim candidates. We pulled the numbers together and we defeated them down in the south where our numbers are much more significant. So please, in the coming election, vote. Tell your family to vote. Doesn't matter who you vote, but at least we can't stay invisible like this. We have the numbers. We make a significant contribution to the local economy. So we should have a strong voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
afternoon. My name is Denise Beamer. I am a circuit court judge here in Orange and Osceola County. I am a first-generation American. My parents immigrated from South Korea and opened a dry cleaning store, and I worked at that dry cleaning store. I did not know any lawyers. I never met a judge except maybe a lawyer that dropped off their clothes, and I took their ticket name and I gave it back to my parents. So I never thought I could ever be a lawyer. I surely thought I could never be a judge. But it wasn't until a mentor said, you can do it and try. And if it wasn't for that mentor, I never would have thought that this was even a possible dream. And so really, I think Khalid hit on a great point of visibility, but more importantly, having the next generation, my children, your grandchildren, knowing and seeing us in the public eye and knowing that they can do it too. We do tours at the courthouse. I would love to host Asian American children, even young folks. My parents have never been to the courthouse except maybe to pay a traffic ticket. But I would love them to come and see. And when we do have young people come, we have them try on the road. We let them sit on the bench to know that it's possible. And we can also have prosecutors like Lisa Gonguerrero, who is at the very top of the state attorney's office. And other folks. So I am more than happy to have young folks come to the courthouse to see what it's like, and maybe that will kickstart a dream. And my name is Denise Beamer. You can find me on the court's website. But I think at the core of it is knowing and believing that it's possible by seeing others do it before you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Christian Ariola. I run a design firm called Goody Global here in Orlando. We're the only agency out of Orlando to win a national award at the American Advertising Federation. And I think really I came here because I wanted to represent like the creative voice of Asian Americans. When we say younger generation, we gotta think about like, how do we culturally shift the perception of Asian Americans, and how do we, as creative people, we're in a culture that raises medical professionals or IT people. It's not something that, at least in my experience, our parents understand what creativity does and how does that make money and what advertising means in this. So when I see the question, how do we transform it from a whisper to a roar, it does involve engaging the younger, creative Asian Americans and not seeing them as just artists or people who paint things or just do graphic design, but looking at them as designers. Designers, the way they're regarded in places like New York and San Francisco, it's not for social media graphics. It's designing the subway system, right? It's designing things like the Winter Park Library, which is like beautiful architecture, inspirational things. So really just, I think what I want to do is just let you guys know that there's a lot of creative Asian professionals here that don't necessarily work for the hospital or don't necessarily work for government. And they want to be part of something cool, and they want to be part of something loud that they can be proud of. So part of the challenge is how do we make voting cool, like make it simple? How do we translate that to the modern mediums of TikTok and social media and get people around that? And unfortunately, I'm 30 years old and I'm already too old for TikTok almost. So we gotta figure out how to get the kids involved because they know how to be authentic through these mediums and not sell, which is what our generation kind of used to. It's like, always be selling, that's a thing. Always be closing, that's a term, right? That's our culture as Americans. So I guess, just wanted to voice out that like, I'm sure there's other creative Asian Americans in here that feel like they want to be here because they want to make a change, but it's also super hard because there's a generational gap that needs to be like combined and united as well. So just wanted to bring that up and hopefully make sure that that's part of the conversation as we go forward.
Thank you.
I'm going to piggyback on what Christian was talking about. I think a transformative way of making a difference is storytelling. Both of you told compelling stories. And in order to transform and make a shift in the thought process of the next generation, or even the generation before us, current generation, is to tell the story. Be compelling, because that's what draws people in. That's what makes the difference. That's how TikTok works, right? I'm 46, I can't with TikTok too much. But people tell stories, short blurbs. It's bite-sized, and that's how people are taking in information. And I think that's really a great way to transform that whisper and make it into a roar.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Boone, and just a complete disclosure, I'm a congressional candidate for Congress CD10. And I think the power to vote is so important. It's something that's taken for granted. And I talk to my sons and people within my own culture about it too, because we've sometimes forgotten. I see these numbers up here, and I think we struggle in the African American community with voting also. My wife is Puerto Rican, Hispanic community as well too. We're all trying to get more of our members out to vote. I think compelling stories are important. If you look at your history, that is a compelling story. The right to vote was given out when we created the Constitution, but not everybody had a chance. African Americans had to wait till 1967 to get the voting right. My great-grandmother was born in 1896 and died in 1990, voted in 1967 for the first time. And my mother's been voting ever since, even though women got a chance to vote in 1920s with women's suffrage movement though. But those same women came back in 67 and helped the Democratic Party pass the voting rights bill. So that's the power of the vote for what women could do, for women's marches though. And it's not just white women, it's all women. And then you think about it for African Americans, it's not just African Americans, it's everybody who has a right to vote. When you go out and vote, you voice your strength, and there are strengths in numbers though. And so that's what's important, to be able to bring people together. I have the same challenges for my sons. The last election, I had to bring home 4 vote-by-mails. We sat down at the dinner table, we filled them out. When it came down to vote, we were sitting at the table again during halftime of a football game. We got them to fill them out as well. So we made it a family project, had to make some kind of fun out of it though. But I had to let them know once again, your mother was in college, and she was in sit-ins in North Carolina at a historically black college, protesting, getting pushed and beaten, and dogs sicked on her. And Dad was there too, they were the same college. But I had to remind, because sometimes, you know, kind of forget Pops is gone, but Grandma was there, and remember what she went through. And she was one of those children doing Brown versus the Board of Ed, where we had to integrate schools. So if you start thinking about your history in this country as well too, and what you don't want to see for your children to be oppressed and things like that though, it's important to be able to take protests and that emotion from protests to the polls. Some of the greatest protests I've seen, and they've been unfortunate, but it had to be protests, they were necessary, were the Stop Asian Hate protests and the George Floyd protests. And I said, these protests are great, can we just make sure we all register to vote? It would be great if every protest was passing a table and stopped and got one of those brochures on the way to protesting. But turning those protests and that emotion, don't let it die. Don't let it die, keep the fire burning to Election Day. And Election Day, come together as a voting bloc and send somebody to Congress and send some person with no courage home for good. Thank you.
We have one final speaker, whichever one.
How about 2? There's one more there.
Just a word of encouragement. AAPI voice is loud on the East Coast and the West Coast. And why do I say this? I was involved with AAPI in the Midwest, and I had seen there is a lot of encouragement there and a real loud voice. It's not roaring yet, but there is a lot of voice. So this is just a beginning for this organization. But there are a lot of people coming from other areas of the United States, Pacific Islanders and all that. They meet quite often in the big cities, and they have meetings. President Obama appointed Cal Penn in charge of AAPI issues. And what I saw on this survey, when I was working as a regional coordinator in the southwest of Ohio, the first issue of concern was healthcare cost. And I see that now it's way down. So a lot of good things must have happened for that issue to go down there. For me, voter registration is very, very important. If we want to have our voice heard, we have to get very active with this. Thank you.
Hi, Agnes Chow. I'm currently the chair of the Central Border of the AAFF, the Asian American Federation of Border. And actually our main job is voters registration. And we did it for many years. I just wanted to share with you, I think why our voice is a whisper, because of culturally. Like, we are in a culture where we are very quiet. We can suck in a lot of things that we don't want to say it loud, and because we're polite, we don't want to be like arguing with anybody. We always say, oh, thank you so much, and yes, 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 even though we don't know what you're talking about, we say yes, yes, yes. So this is a cultural thing. So when we do education in the past, we call them, like the people on the phone will say, who are you? I don't know you, hang up, okay? And then I don't have time, I have to go to work. Or they actually, you know that they're there, they just don't answer the phone. This is the frustration that we have received. So we're getting nowhere, because our target, I think now that we come up to this meeting, we have the wrong target. We should not target the adult or the seniors, because they think that they cannot make anything change. They're a small population, and they better keep quiet, if not they'll be the target. And they're very skeptical of strangers trying to call them. What are you trying to get out of me? Like, voting? Do I get anything out of it? You pay me? Or like, they ask you all sorts of different questions. So, but I think the change is we need to talk to the young people, the kids, elementary school, high school. We change it around. Let them go back and tell the parents, hey, you have to go vote. For me, my daughter is the princess. If she asks me to do something, of course I will do it. Why would you upset your children when they would think of the bad things about you? Why are you not updated? Why are you sitting at home? Why are you not voting? Look at this young man. He will share your experience because he's one of our members in one of our organization, Bridge. We train him to be a leader. Come on. We train him to be a leader when he is in high school. So he has been going through our, high school leadership training program, and look at him now. He is here with us. One of us now. And it's because we train them from young. And he will go back and tell his parents, why are you not voting? I think it's easier if we do it the other way around, instead of from the parents to the kids. I think it's from the kids to the parents. Maybe that will work.
Yes, they do vote now.
See? Thank you.
Thank you. I heard a lot of key things. My favorite was, come to the courthouse, you can try on my road. So, the humor, I will be there. But on a serious note though, there were a lot of key things that I heard that really, really resonated. I heard young AAPI involvement, our numbers count, can't be invisible, and we all need to contribute. And we want to be part of something loud. I really like that because that really, really tied in with the roar aspect. And also, the one piece that I agree with is storytelling. Storytelling in any culture, I believe, shares a different perspective that you can learn from and continue to share with the next generation. So storytelling has so many different aspects to it, and part of that is being vulnerable. And I want to thank everyone here for being open and vulnerable to sharing. Now, before we close this out, some of my colleagues will be handing out a few items here. We have this card called the action card. And we also have another voting 101. The voting 101 says all the basics of how do you register, where to go to change your information, also addressing questions and concerns about the mailers in the supervisor elections office. The key thing that we wanted you to pay attention to was the action card. If you walk away with anything today, if you take a look at this sheet, there are little bubbles here on the side so that you can check it off and say that you've completed it. The first push is the social media push. This is important. I know Christian, I believe, mentioned that it's so important and imperative to get involved with the younger generation. And I'm not going to share my age here out in streaming live, so I'm not going to do that. But I will tell you, I am too old for TikTok as well. So share it on your social media with hashtag #ActMad. And for some of you, you might have heard ActMad. What is ActMad? ACT, as you know, is AAPI coming together. But MAD is something that I learned from CAM, where it's make a difference. So act MAD, and also tag the AAPI _coming_ together. The second item that you could do is participate. Register to vote. And I know you mentioned how important it is to register to vote. That is the start. Register to vote, then you get all the information. And there's a link right here where you can go get more information. The third bullet point is to spread the word. Share this with 10 of your friends. So we just challenge you 10. But if you are overachievers, 20 is fine, or 100 is fine. So you can share it with your friends and pass this along to them. And that's the action card for us. And as I close, I just want to say again, thank you everyone for joining us on a Monday evening to learn a little bit more about ACT. I want to thank the Supervisor Elections Office and Bill as well, and also his core team. Danae's in the back, frantically, I'm sure, checking her emails. She's always on point. And also our community partners, AsiaTrend, and also the news media as well for coming out and sharing this as well. Stay tuned, follow our page to get more information about upcoming information such as our panel discussions, candidate forums, and more voting 101 videos. There's more to come, and more of our members, you'll get to meet them further. Thank you.